Welcome back to episode 5 of your MPC Masterclass. Now in this video, we're going to cover the sequencing edit menu. When I first started with MPCs, I used to get stuck in 2-bar and 4-bar loop ideas all the time. But that's the power of this menu because it will help you arrange those loop ideas into full flush songs. Now in the description below, there's a download link for the project we're working on, so you can download it and follow along or just create your own version of the track. We're going to be using a little method called Subtractive Sequencing, where we're essentially making the busiest part of the song, breaking it into different sequences, and then subtracting things in order to come up with a fully flushed idea. And on that note, let the sequence begin. That's so corny. So to start, we're going to select the pencil icon on the lower right of the sequencing section on the main screen. And then we're going to start in the upper left by selecting Erase. Erase is often overlooked about how powerful it can be. Starting in the upper left, we have what sequence are we working on. Then, moving over to the right, what track are we working on? Then we'll select where in the track we're working. By default, it's going to select the entire length of the sequence. Now, moving below that, we have all. This will erase everything on that selected track. Next to that is automation. This will erase either all the automation, or if you go into the submenu, it will erase specific parameters that are automated, and they would show up here. And then next to that, we have note. Now this will allow us to select a single note or multiple notes and erase the rest of those notes. Then moving over to the right, except note is the opposite, where we can select one or multiple notes, and then by hitting do it, it will erase everything but the notes that we have currently selected. So we're able to use this erase menu along with track mutes to do a method called subtractive sequencing. We're essentially going to build the busiest part of the track, the chorus, copy that to different sequences, and then use this menu to start deleting notes and build the evolution of our song. Now, if you've downloaded the demo project, you're going to see it only has one sequence. And let's go back to our main screen and then rename this sequence our intro. And then come into our copy sequence, which is located in the lower left. And we're going to copy our intro sequence into sequence 2, which is unused. But to save time, we're going to go ahead and rename this verse while we copy it over. Hit do it. And then we're going to just keep repeating this. Take the verse and go into sequence 3. We're going to go ahead and call this the pre-chorus. Hit do it. And then one more time. We will go back into copy sequence and let's say take the pre and put it into the chorus and hit do it. And now we can hit the next sequence button on the hardware and take a look, and we have 4 different sections of the song ready to go. Now if we were to listen to any of these sequences, they would all sound the same because we haven't gone in and customized them at all. So we're going to use track mutes and then also the erase function to make each one of these sections different. So first, let's go into the intro and then click the mute button located on your hardware. And now let's just go and start muting some of the more intense elements like the ARP, the chords, the lead, the other chords. These are all pretty intense and we'll probably just bring them in on the chorus. And let's also mute the guitar and the bass and take a listen. Now that sounds pretty good for an intro, but let's go ahead and clear up some of the drums. Now remember that the mute state of these tracks is all connected to the sequence, while the mute state of the pads is connected directly to the program. So we couldn't just go into drums and mute some of the pads, because what's going to happen then is if we go into another sequence, all of these pads are still going to be muted. And this is where we can utilize the erase feature. Now, just to compare what we have muted in the different sequences, we can just highlight the sequence up here and then switch in between the two and compare what we have muted while we're creating the different sections of our song. So now that we have some tracks muted, let's go into our drums and decide what we want to keep in and keep out. We definitely don't want the kick and the snare. A lot of the hi-hats can go. And this is where we're going to use the erase feature to eliminate the notes we don't want. So let's jump back into our erase menu. Now, one thing that's really cool about accept note and also note is that it will give you a preview of each sound when you actually hit and select the pad. So we're going to use accept note and go ahead and select this sound, and then also this sound, and then we're going to clear out everything else. So let's have a listen. And instead of that, once we hit do it, we're going to have a much more stripped back version of the drums. Now that sounds much more like an intro, so let's go over to the verse. We'll probably want to bring in a couple more of the rhythmic elements of the drums, probably bring in the bass line, so let's go ahead and hit mute again on the controller. Let's make a quick mental note of what we have muted here and click on the top, and then use the scroll wheel to select our next sequence. And we know we want the drums, the bass, the guitar chug. We don't want this lead guitar in there. Let's also mute the synth lead and the ARP. Let's also mute the toms and the chords, and that leaves us with the drums, the bass, the guitar chug, and the snaps. Now let's go back to our main and go back into the sequence edit menu and click on erase. And again, we're going to use accept note and start selecting the notes we want to keep, starting with the 2 perks that we originally had. Let's bring in some of these hi-hats. And then let's also bring in this tambourine. Let's hit do it and have a listen. And let's also just have a quick listen and see how they go together. All right, now let's focus on the pre-chorus. Let's select it and then hit mute once again. So now just for reference, let's jump back into our verse and see what we had muted. Pretty much everything besides drums, bass, guitar, and snaps. So thinking about the pre, we could probably take out the bass, bring in the chords, but let's take out the chord layer. Let's take out the lead. Let's leave in the guitar chug, but let's take out the snaps. Also the ARP should come out. Let's take out the toms. And then for our drums, let's take out everything except for some of the rhythm elements. We don't need to have the kick and the snare or too much going on inside of the pre-chorus. Let's keep it pretty simple. So let's go back into our main, back into our menu, and then erase again. Accept notes, and we're going to select the tambourine. Let's select the shaker, a couple of the hi-hats, hit do it, and have a listen. All right, that sounds good, but we can hear that there's quite a bit of automation on the synth filter. So let's go clear that up. Let's go back into the menu, go back into erase. And then with chord selected, we're going to select automation and change it from all parameters to the filter cutoff. Select that. Then we're going to hit do it and have a listen. So just a quick review of subtractive sequencing. We are using the mute track feature along with the erase features to create different unique versions of the segments of the song. Now listening back, it sounds like it would be nice to have a 1-bar break on the pre right before the chorus comes in. So there's a couple ways we could do this. We could go back to the main, click on the grid, find all these notes, zoom out. There we go. Now we could come in and select all these notes, which can be a little bit cumbersome to actually get it right. But the easier way is just to come back into the erase, make sure we're on our drums, select all, and then change the length that we're selecting. So we're going to go up to bar 4 to 5, hit do it, and now if we go back into our grid, we can see that we quickly and easily just deleted that bar of events right there. So using the download link below, why don't you go ahead and grab the project, and then using subtractive sequencing, come up with your own arrangement and version of this song. Now moving over to the right from erase, we have clear. Clear will essentially just completely remove the entire sequence from your project. So make sure this is exactly what you want to do before you do it. So here I have a sequence that's just called test. I'm going to go ahead and select that. Then go back into our sequence edit menu and clear it out. Confirm that I do want to clear it. Are you sure? And now when we go back to next sequence, we can see that it is completely removed. And then next to that, we have transpose. Now, transpose will work two different ways depending on if you're on a drum track or a melodic track. So here we have a drum track where we can shift all the notes on one pad to another pad. A lot of the times an MPC pack will have a kick on A01 and then also A05, so this is a nice way to switch between the two. So taking everything from A01 and placing it on A05. Now when you're on a melodic track, such as track number 2 with the bass, you can select a range of notes and then transpose them up or down by semitone. Now you can also transpose on the main window right here. The advantage of this is when you transpose, it will take and transpose the MIDI notes on every single track as opposed to a single track. Now moving over, we have bounce to sample, and this is going to be the same as it is in the other two menus where we're just bouncing the sequence to a sample. Now below we have delete bars. This is going to delete a bar or a range of bars on all the tracks in the sequence, so just make sure that's exactly what you want to do. Now back to the main menu, we have insert bars. Insert bars is a great tool to actually insert a bar. Let's say at the end of our pre-chorus, we wanted a 1-bar break before the chorus came in, but we had everything already laid out in song mode. Instead of having to go and insert a sequence and change up the song mode, we could just go into insert bar on the pre and put one empty bar at the end of the pre before the chorus. Now moving over, we have half length. This will essentially just cut the sequence in half. But please note that when you actually use half length, it's not going to retain the notes afterwards, so you're going to lose all those notes. An alternative way would just be to go to the main and then adjust the length of the sequence, let's say from 4 bars into 2 bars. Then when we go into the grid and have a look, we can see that it actually retains the excess MIDI notes that we could go back to later. Now, double length is going to double the length of the sequence, but it's also going to copy all the MIDI events over to the new length. If we were on the main and just doubled the length there, we would have emptiness at the end of the sequence. So this is a great way to, let's say, take a 2-bar loop and make it a 4-bar loop and not have to copy over all the MIDI notes. Then we have copy sequence that we used at the beginning while we were doing the sequencing. Just remember to rename the sequence while you're copying it and save yourself some time. Then we have copy bar. This is actually really handy if we make an adjustment to the end of the chorus. Let's say we add a fill in between bar 7 and 8, and we want to try that on the pre-chorus. We could either use replace or merge. Replace would actually replace all the events. Merge would just add them on top. So we're going to go and change this from 7 to 8, and we're going to take it from the chorus and put it on the pre, and we would hit replace and just drop in that fill at the end of the pre-chorus. Now moving over, we have copy events. This is very similar to copy bars, but instead of transferring everything on all tracks, we can be more selective. We can say we want to focus on a specific track and either copy all events or copy only selected events. This is actually really great when we need to, let's say, add a new element in to a whole bunch of different sequences. So as an example of how this would work, let's say we've already gone through and laid out these 4 sections of our song, but back on the drums we found this sound and we wanted to lay it in. So let's record it. And one thing you'll notice is that after we hit stop, if we're just recording in a single note, they're already going to be highlighted. So we can just jump back into our edit menu and go into copy event and change to copy only selected events and say we're going from the intro on the drums and we're going to copy those notes over into our verse. And then at the bottom you will see both replace and merge. For this, we are going to use merge because we want to just add these new notes to existing notes. If we were going to hit replace, it would just wipe everything out. But let's go into our verse, go into our grid, and there we can see that we just copied over all those new notes. Then we just go back and repeat it on all the different sections of the song. Without having to really do much, we can add those new notes into all these different parts of the track. And then finally at the bottom we have save current sequence. This will just allow us to save the sequence with a custom name to a custom location on our internal or connected memory source. All right, there it is, the sequencing edit menu. I hope that helped you see how you can take your loop ideas and create full-fledged songs. Now in the next video, make sure you stay tuned because we're diving right into the main menu. It's gonna be a lot of information, but that's where a lot of the magic of the MPC exists. Thanks for your time, thanks for your attention. Now go make something cool.